Good evening, everybody, and a warm welcome to the episode 4 of ECA per Talks. I am Mansi Mehta. I am the host for your session today. We will begin with our introduction for Early Childhood Association and APER, which is Association for Primary Education and Research, and then we invite all the panelists on the screen. The Early Childhood Association is set up with the vision that all the preschools, balwadis, NGOs, children's activity classes, parents, student teachers, media houses, companies that deal with children's products, in short, everyone connected to young children, can all come together to advocate, discuss, learn and share, connect and bring about a change in the quality of development and learning in early childhood in India. This was about Early Childhood Association. APER, which is Association of Primary Education and Research, that is a vertical under the aegis of ECA, which is a registered body. APER's vision is to work on quality enhancement in primary education through collaborative action between early years program and primary schools. So this was in short about ECA and APER, which I shared with all of you. The ECA and APER is under the management of Dr. Swati Popatwats. We all are able to come on a common platform, share our vision, our beliefs, and we all are together here to do the betterment of the early childhood education in India and across the globe. I take this honor to welcome all the panelists today who are actually, let me just put it like that the panelists that I have today with me and the people whom I'm going to introduce you, actually the host is quite nervous than the guests maybe. So I think let me take the privilege and let me take the honor of introducing all of you. And in some way or the other, I have connected with each one of you at a personal level as well. So it's my honor, and let me take this privilege to introduce all of you. So we have first speaker of the day, Dr. Jaya Parekh. We have second speaker, Ms. Richa Chadda. Third speaker, Sonal Ahuja. Fourth speaker, Pallavi Rao Chaturvedi. We have fifth speaker as Mahek Valecha, and sixth speaker is Arshia Afsar. Pardon me for the nervousness because, as I'm telling you, I am quite nervous as a host to introduce all of you. So please pardon me for that. So I welcome first speaker of the day. You can all unmute yourself and you can maybe, just wave a hand or say hi to all the participants and all the viewers who are viewing you. So we have first speaker, Dr. Jaya Parekh. Jaya Parekh is the principal of Ram Ratna International School in Mumbai. She is also the territory head of Bayandar Malad APER from the APER section. The topic that she's going to talk for today is happy school practices. The quote today, I have taken quote from all the panelists in which they truly believe in. So I'm going to tell the quote before the session starts, which is going to help all the participants to relate to the philosophy that all of you believe in. So the quote that Dr. Jaya has shared is, whatever the question, love is the answer. This is the best quote I could find from a principal of a school. So let's hear it from Dr. Jaya Parekh. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Namaste, everyone. Good evening. It's a great pleasure to be here. And Mansi, you cannot be more wrong when you say you are nervous. You're the last person to get nervous. So, friends, it's a pleasure to talk to you about my school's happy practices. So I'm representing Ram Ratna International School, and at the outset itself, let me thank the entire RRIS family for making these practices possible and successful. So when we say happy practices, what I mean is what gives satisfaction at the end of the day, what makes you feel accomplished, what makes you feel a part of the universe, and what makes you in harmony with everyone around you and also within yourself. You feel at peace, and that is how we can describe happiness. And there are so many values which lead to this state, whether it is about being mindful, it is about being grateful, it is about being compassionate, empathetic. So I would like to share a few of my school practices which I feel have been able to bring in that atmosphere of these values being a way of life in all our students, in the staff, in stakeholders, including parents and everyone. So let me first tell you that at RRIS, we celebrate each and every day because we believe that life itself calls for a celebration. It is a matter of celebration that we are alive and ticking, breathing every single day, making a difference. We celebrate Mondays as Marvelous Mondays, where first 10 minutes the entire school gets together in the assembly hall and we all dance together. So it's a beautiful start of the week. Then it's followed by Appreciation Tuesday. On Appreciation Tuesdays, anyone in the school family can just write appreciation note to anybody, thanking them, telling them how good they are, what they're doing, and it's kind of motivation for each one. So, followed by Appreciation Tuesday, we have Smiley Wednesdays. So, on Smiley Wednesdays, people can make others smile, have to try to bring as many smiles around them as they can. They can pass on smileys, or they can just go try meeting new people and bring a smile on their face. Thursdays are celebrated as Thank You Thursdays, where we have chosen to thank one aspect every Thursday. For example, it could be a thank you prayer for failures in life, thank you for facilities at home, thanks to the soldiers guarding us and the nation. So we have developed within our school itself around 30 prayers, and the whole school community does this prayer together on Thursdays. When we say that the children these days are feeling entitled, they don't feel grateful for what they get, and this is our humble initiative of bringing in that sense of gratitude in them. That's what is very important to achieve happiness in life, being grateful. Then we have Forgiveness Fridays, where people can approach others if they feel that they have gone wrong somewhere and seek forgiveness. And also, we expect that if somebody has approached you, you must forgive wholeheartedly. Then Saturdays are called Express Saturdays, and first 10 minutes of the school, we all gather together and people are free. The students, staff, anybody can just come ahead and express their views, thoughts, talent, share stories from their life or anything that they would like to express. Sundays are celebrated as Service Sundays, and here we expect our parents also to get engaged in some kind of service to society, including our students. So children have been doing very well on Service Sundays, as we put a lot of emphasis in our school on social responsibility and community work. So another practice that I would like to speak about is uh, on their birthdays, the students bring books for the tribal children in our vicinity, and we place them in a shelf, in a book shelf called Khushi Ki Almari. So it's a cupboard actually. And these books are then used for our another initiative called Knowledge on Wheels. So once in a week, that's on Wednesdays, our students visit Jamjharpada, a village, a tribal village close to our school, and they interact with the children there who are not that privileged. They help them learn, read, and they also display or demonstrate science experiments, have an interaction with them on various topics, and try to build better bonds in the community with them. So, Khushi Ki Almari, then we have a Khushi Ki Diwar in every classroom, where whatever the students would like to give or share with those who do not have all that we have, they can put it in the Khushi Ki Diwar. And once in a year, we organize Khushi Bazaar and Khushi Utsav, that's on 26th of January, where these things are given away, are gifted to the people from our vicinity. We have a lot of tribal communities in our vicinity. So they are invited and they enjoy. It's like a fun fair. And at the same time, we organize puppet shows for them. We organized health camps for them. So it becomes a huge affair where everyone gets to just enjoy and carry a lot of joy in their hearts by the time it ends. So then we have a Khushi Utsav, Khushi Bazaar is something where the stakeholders, all of them are involved. Our parents have been taking care of Khushi Utsav mostly, and the Khushi Bazaar, where the things are given to people as per their choice and needs, is handled by our students and staff. Then I would also like to say that in schools, usually it's the toppers who are always felicitated and celebrated. But here we keep a record of students who have shown gradual improvement. And we celebrate these children even if a child has moved from, let's say, 20% to 50%, but there has been a consistent effort on the part of the child, then we award them with an award called Kaizen Award. So this gives them a feeling that life is all about progress. By it's not about competing with others, and that's what is very important for staying happy in life, then we also feel that open communication is very important to build that happy environment, fearless environment in the school. And hence we have practices like breakfast with principal. So every morning I have breakfast with 4 to 5 students in my office, where we have open communication, and it's not just limited to any kind of academics. It can be anything under the sun that we can discuss, and it has helped us build a very good rapport. Apart from this, I have a box outside my office called I Think I Feel box, where the children can drop in any of the points that they would like me to know, and then I talk to them about it. We also have a school code practice where the students can drop in if they feel that they are harassed or teased by some child, something which is making them uncomfortable. Then there are school court members who are children of our school who tackle this issue. They allot student members of school court as advocates for the child who has made a complaint and for a child against whom the complaint is made. There are a series of interrogations and communication happens, and this is how it helps them become fair and just in their decision making. So that's how it just goes. I would also like you to know that there is an annual practice called Coins for a Cause, where the students save money from their own pocket money to contribute to Khushi Bazaar, Khushi Utsav and such events. We have been able to donate wheelchairs, etc. So I think my time is up, and thank you for listening to me. Look forward to interacting with you again in the future. Thank you, Mansi.
Thank you, Dr. Jaya. I
Thank
must not forget to mention that I know Dr. Jaya through our back days during our ETST, which is Education Today, Society Tomorrow. That is the first time I met Dr. Jaya, and I had a very pleasant experience. And we all are a part of the Mumbai ETST group as well. So it was pleasant listening to Dr. Jaya today. Thank you so much for valuable inputs. We have a lot of comments coming in for sharing a lot of good practices that you're doing in your school.
Okay.
So thank you, Dr. Jaya.
Thank you, Mansi. If anybody has a question, you can share my details with them. They can contact
Absolutely.
me.
So for all the attendees or anybody who has questions, there is a question answer session, the section over there. Please post please post there. So all the panelists will be able to respectively address those questions for all of you, if we have the time and if the time permits.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
So we have the next speaker of the day, Miss Richa Chadda. If I have to say something about Richa, she is one of very dear friends of mine. And if I have to define her in one word, simplicity is equal to Richa. So Richa is the co-founder of Kid Engage, and she is one of the territory heads of ECA Telangana. Richa is a computer science engineer by profession and has also worked with reputed banks like HSBC and Royal Bank of Scotland. The reason I'm introducing her in this particular way because currently everybody knows her as an educator, but she carries a lot of other accolades along with her. So it's important for all of us to know that what kind of people, why passionate people come and join ECA and APA. The topic that she's going to talk about is creating a reading program for your preschool. It's a very interesting topic. And the quote, she's the only one I have not asked a quote from. I just took it from one of her articles. Richa, pardon me for that. So she mentions, and I quote her, it is all about the priorities in life. You have to make peace with your own choices. So let's hear it from Richa. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mansi, for that wonderful welcome. And thank you for having us all here. It's such a pleasure, being on the panel with such illustrious names. And thank you, Dr. Jaya, for actually starting the discussion on such a happy note. I'm sure all the attendees as well as all the panelists were smiling as you were recounting those happy practices. And your Khushi Ki Almari just stole my heart away. So, it so connects with what I want to talk about today, because I know as educators, all of us feel very strongly about reading. We all know the importance of reading. We keep telling the importance of reading to students and to the parents, but still, unfortunately, we don't see many readers around us, whether it's in the children or in the adults. So, this is something that bothers me a lot, and I'm sure a lot of you also would have that question, that when we are insisting so much on reading, why don't we have readers, my own explorations into the phenomena as to why this is happening, I just could figure out one thing, that probably we do not have enough of a reading ecosystem in our surroundings. And if we can start building that reading ecosystems right from our preschools, as we do for the learning ecosystems that we build, it's very much simple. It's exactly the same as you would encourage learning at your preschools. What is it that you do to encourage learning in your schools? You have your learning objectives chalked out, you put up your curriculum, you gather all your teaching aids, your manipulatives, your teaching resources, you make sure that you train your teachers so that they agree with your philosophy, your vision. You let the child lead you on that learning journey, so that you are not hurrying them up. At the same time, the fast moving children have challenges enough. You counsel parents so that they walk with you on the learning journey, and you're constantly in that assessment mode when it comes to the learning objectives, whether it is for the students or for the teachers. Just draw a one-on-one parallel for the reading journey, and you would see it's basically as simple as that. You need to have your reading objectives, you need to have a framework as to how you're going to introduce books. So when I say reading, I don't just mean the engagement with letters and alphabets. I mean reading as a hobby, making reading as a part of your lifestyle. So you introduce books. How do you introduce books as part of that framework? You get your resources in place, which in this case would be your story props and your activities that you're going to use. You train your educators in line with your reading philosophy, your vision of reading. You let the child lead the reading journey as well, along with the learning journey. Bring the parents on board. You make sure that the child is getting a reading environment at home too. And then again, the assessment, whether or not everything is working as you thought it would be, and what corrective actions need to be taken. So if I have to actually simplify the process, I'm being an engineer, like Mansi mentioned, I have this habit of breaking down everything into bullet points because it becomes very easy to execute like that. I thought I'll give you 7 steps how to introduce a reading program into your preschool. So first step, have your reading objectives in place. At the age of preschoolers, what kind of learning objectives are we aiming to achieve? We want them to understand, we want them to express, we want them to imagine. Those are the things that we are looking for when we are encouraging a child to read. So what kind of the kind of books, the kind of activities, the kind of observations or assessments that you're going to do, that should follow this framework that you're going to put in place. Then the second step is you get ready. And how do you get ready? You assess your own curriculum. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You would have your curriculum in place. You would have a list of the themes that you're going to follow in your preschool every month or every week. You just have to make sure that you do your homework, you do your background research to see how you can introduce books into each theme. Where can reading come into the picture so that it does not feel as a burden to either the child or the teachers in the classroom. Then the next step, the step 3 would be to do your research. You prepare your book lists for the themes based on your selection criteria. Now, selection criteria would depend on the reading level of children. So for very young children, for your pre-nursery, nursery level, you would want to have wordless books or books with a maximum of 1 or 2 words per page. For slightly older children in lower kindergarten, you would want books with, up to, let's say, 10 words per page and a learning of about 20 new words in the entire book. For the upper kindergarten, that level would go a little higher. You would have longer sentences, 2 to 3 sentences on each page. You would aim for about 30 to 50 new words per book. Next selection criteria would be the language, the kind of language that is being used. Is it something that the child can relate to? The pictures that are there, the setting in which the story is set, so that the child can relate to it. That becomes a very important factor for the reading program, because if the child can't relate to it, the child will not enjoy the story. Morals are something that keep coming back to me as questions from parents as well as from teachers. Do we need to have moral stories? Yes, for a child, when everything is a blank slate, the child is going to learn something or the other. But in my experience, let the morals be subtle. We don't really need to spell out the moral of the story is this. The child will have their morals. You can talk about it, but don't make it a learning thing that the child has to learn this from this book. Each child will take away their own unique takeaways from that book. And most important criteria of it all has to be that the book has to be really, really engaging for the child. Your step 4 would be obviously procurement. How do you get these books? There are innumerable resources for you to get good quality children's books. You have Amazon, of course. Then there are lots of Facebook groups these days that are selling curated children's books. You can do parent sourcing, get your parents on board. When you have your list prepared, you send that list to the parents if they would like to buy one of those books, and the book can be shared with the other children. That's the most beautiful thing that can be done. Sign up for libraries, because libraries also come with a reading expert who can help you in the reading journey. And then, of course, there are people like us who can help. At Kid Engage, we do a lot of these reading programs for schools as well as for parents. Then the next step is train your teachers and get your resources in place. So for example, if you're reading Cat in the Hat, a mask with the cat face and a hat on top of it is such a huge hit that the children will love it. And when they see everyone in the class wearing the same kind of mask and they all enacting the same story, the fun goes to an entirely new level. The most important thing when you're doing this step to remember is that you and your teachers, the entire team, needs to build that enthusiasm for reading, because it will not be good for anybody. Then the next step is, of course, bring the parents in, like I mentioned before, and then finally take stock of the progress, assess course correction with everyone on board: teachers, parents, and children. So that's my quick 7-step thing. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them on the chat or later in the this thing. Otherwise, you can find me always on ECA groups. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Richa. And sorry to interrupt with the timing, that the time is up. So I'm sorry for that. You are a brilliant speaker. Maybe I have got a lot of comments that people want you to repeat the steps. So if you can just mention while the other speaker talks, if you can write down on the chat section, so everybody will be able to.
Thank you, Mansi.
Yeah. So it was indeed wonderful to know about how to have the reading program for your preschool, especially during the lockdown time, what all they can start preparation for. And when the school starts, they'll be able to implement that as well. So we move on to the next speaker. We have Miss Sonal Ahuja. Sonal Ahuja is the founder House for Learning. She's the territory head of APER Delhi chapter. The topic that she's going to talk on today is understanding metaphors to foster metacognition. The quote that Miss Sonal has mentioned, which is very, very, very nice and implicable for all of us. You are not what you talk about yourself. You are what others talk about you. That's very important, Sonal, what you have shared. And let me tell something about Sonal to all of you. Sonal is somebody whom I not miss calling when I visit Delhi. Every time I have landed in Delhi for some or the other work, Sonal is the first one I call, just to check on her if she's okay or not. So Sonal, I have that connection with you, and which will always remain.
Thank you so much, Mansi. Thanks a lot. And I congratulate the other speakers who have spoken just before me. It's so amazing and so enriching to know you all and learn a lot of practices from you people. I know the topic, even when I was just thinking about my topic, it seems to be a little complex. It's like understanding metaphors to foster metacognition. But I tell you, it's very, very simple, because I am going to tell you in the most simple way. I know most of us who are viewing, we have 284 viewers. My God, that's so wonderful. That is so wonderful. So I know most of you must be knowing what metaphors are. And for those who don't know, let me just clearly tell you in the most simplest way. Most of the time you would have seen yourself, saying, oh, my children are like my sunshine. Or maybe, time is money. Most of the time we talk about these things. So what are these? These are kind of the representations that we have in our mind going on all the time. And we then finally articulate and bring it out in our life. So, see, there is no relationship of time with money. Time is time, money is money. But what similarity could be the characteristics that money has or time has? Like, if you use time nicely, you're going to save. Isn't it the characteristic of money as well? So, this is how we are using metaphorically two things together, which literally are not the same, but somehow it is helping us, bring that idea forward in our life to the others, or maybe in our heads inside, we keep talking to ourselves in the most metaphorical ways. And the connection of metaphors to metacognition, if I have to make you understand this, to which I will not give you gyan on theories, I really want to share something of my personal experience I've just had before the lockdown. So I was on this project in juvenile home where I was working with children, and there was a 7-year-old child. He indulged into the crime, which I cannot express right now on this platform due to some protocols. But the crime was unexpected to come from a 7-year-old. To which I established a communication with him, and I asked that, from where did you get this? He said, I got an idea, Didi. मेरे को एक idea आ गया. I said, idea आ गया. What is that idea? क्या idea आया? कहाँ से आया? He said, मेरे दोस्त बैठे हुए थे, हम सब 5 जने थे, तो उसकी मैंने एक बात सुनी और मुझे आइडिया आ गया. To which I asked that I also sit in groups, there are a lot of things happening around, there are a lot of people talking. तो ये आइडिया मुझे हमेशा क्यों नहीं आता है? You know, the other person is getting, like you are getting that idea. तो 4 बच्चे भी बैठे हुए थे, उनके दिमाग में तो ये बात नहीं गया. How did it come to your mind? He said कि बाकी लोग ना दीदी दिमाग बंद करके रहते हैं, मैं दिमाग खुला करके रहता हूँ. And I tell you, I was amazed on this communication when he established this with me. And I understood that even a child who is just 7-year-olds, not coming from the ecosystem where people are literate around, where he's getting the best nurturing, he's into the lower middle class group, but still his brain absolutely works the way the brain of any human being would work on the planet. He was, able to process the information that something is happening around me. Mera dimag khula hua hai, this idea has come in, and then he started strategizing on it. You know how beautiful this is when children are just thinking, and there are a lot of stories going on in their heads, there are a lot of metaphors happening, and we adults kind of are literally unaware of what's happening there. Now, this example I'm citing, this is one unresourceful side of the example, but just imagine the lot of children we come across as parents and educators who are masters of metaphors. They know from where these ideas are coming to their mind. They know what's happening inside, but they know vices. They don't know the theory behind it. कि उनके दिमाग में actually चल क्या रहा है. So, that's the reason, whenever I talk to these children, I find them so profound, because I have seen that there are hardly any, links of facts in their life. Their ecosystem is just developing. There are no hard realities. They're just growing. There are a lot of raw material happening in their mind. And that's the reason there is a lot of flexibility also in their thought process, which they use, and they establish the conversations with the adults around. So what is most important, it is for us is to know that there is something called metacognition happening every now and then, which is closely knitted with metaphors. Now, how? When I am thinking about something, I have a lot of metaphors going on. What I'm ultimately doing is I'm reflecting on my own thinking process. And what is metacognition? It's all about thinking about thinking. It's all about knowing what I actually know. It's about knowing why am I behaving in a particular way that I am at any point in time. So when you start, questioning your own thought process, reflecting on your thinking is the way to go forward in life. And I'm sure you must have seen a lot of experiments initiated There was an experiment initiated by Walter Mischel in 1970s, which is called the marshmallow experiment. I'm sure most of the educators must be knowing about it, where children were given marshmallows and they were conditioned that if you do not eat this marshmallow, you'll get the second one by the time the experimenter comes back. Please go ahead, check on YouTube, see the whole this YouTube video of this experiment. I will just share the crux of this because of the lack of time. What happened during this period was this whole process was done and 30% of the children were able to resist and not touch the marshmallow because they were seeing an outcome that I want to have two instead of one. And when these 30% children were followed by the experimenters in 80s and 90s, what was seen was that these were the only children who could score high in their SATs. And also they had very few behavioral problems in life, which shows that metacognition, when the children are put into the window of thinking to think about their own thinking, it actually is a predictor of great success in life. So the question is, when we talk about metacognition, a great success, then why can't we teach it in schools? And then the question arises that, okay, how to do that? So it's very simple. The way I initiated the conversation with this child, you just have to ponder upon and see in your behavior, first of all, how many times have you identified your own metaphors? Things like you're going for a party and suddenly you're getting ready and you see a car crash in front of you. I'm sure most of us, we normally get these kinds of visuals coming and we push them off and we feel, oh, it's nothing, and you fall back to your normal routine. But to me, they're the metaphors, they're the signals, and they're called SOSs, which is like spontaneously occurring signals, you know. So this is what you have to be aware of, how you decode those signals, how do you ask multiple questions to yourself to reach to that level of understanding it and then building your life upon it. So it's very important that you first learn to do these things with you, you practice, you understand what is that is going inside you, first of all, so that once you're clear with this, you're in a good position to help children outside of you. Because now you will be a person who will be able to understand their metaphors. And I said that early learners are the masters at it. They're masters of metaphors. There are no facts, clinging onto them. They're so raw. So establish lovely these conversations with them by knowing the right questions to be asked. And that's possible only when you know their world. And that's the reason you would have seen most of the preschoolers when they're at play, you just go and talk to them and they come up with huge stories. You will not even realize from where those stories are coming. But everything is happening inside of them in their head. They have ample of metaphors going on, and that's the most complex system of our neurology, which is not seen, it's hidden. We cannot see what's happening, but if you study about it, if you read about it, you will be able to connect more with your children, and you will be able to guide them on the basis of that. Ultimately, you would see that these are the only children who were exposed to a lot of questions and who were listened carefully with open mind right in the early years are the ones who kind of ventured off track. You know, the people who ventured off track, if you go back and see Edison, you see Albert Einstein, you see Leonardo da Vinci. If you talk about them, if you read about them, you would see these were the people who were rich at metaphors. They understood what signals they are getting inside their head, and they started building upon it. So it's important that you check who are the children in your ecosystem as educators. And to the parents, my message would be, please spend time observing your child with an open mind. I know we all say one dialogue, including me. I tell my children, I'm always by your side. I'm always there for you. I agree, that's there. But the thing is, I'm there for you with an open mind, where what you say, it's directly going into my head and I can decode your metaphors and so start building upon it. And my time is up, though I wanted to say a lot. But anyways, thanks, Mansi. In short, I have conveyed my message. So be open, be with the children, read about metaphors, Go mad about it. It has a lot of beauty hidden inside. Thank you, Mansi.
Thank you so much, Sonal. I'm sorry, this was not an indication to switch on my video so that you can stop talking. I was just
I'm so sorry. I thought you're there and
no,
I
no,
have
no,
to shut up now.
no. Yeah, your time was up, but that was not an indication. So I'm so sorry for being so intimidating to you. So it was great listening to you. There are a lot of comments again for Sonal also that there are a lot of you have a lot of fan following Sonal. So there are so many people who have said that
Thank
they have your they enjoy your talks and they are the reflection of your keen observations.
I'm so
So
glad.
yeah,
I'm so
so
glad.
thank
Thanks.
you so much, Sonal, for being there with us. We have the next speaker of the day, Dr. Pallavi Rao Chaturvedi. She's from Bhopal. She is the EVP for ISECT. If I'm not spelling it wrong, right? It's AISECT. ISECT Group. She's the founder for Brainy Bear Preschools and Get Set Parenting with Pallavi YouTube channel. Oh, I love your YouTube channel. Let me just tell you that.
Thank you.
I keep on following that regularly. I've subscribed as well. So she's also one of the vice presidents of Early Childhood Education and Association. The topic that she'll be talking on today is honing long-term and short-term memory in children. The quote that Dr. Pallavi believes, and she would like us to share it with all of you, is you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. That's a fantastic quote. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And over to you, Dr. Pallavi.
Thank you, Mansi. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And I have been a keen listener to all the speakers before me, and I have taken down a lot of notes, truly very enlightening and enriching as well. So everyone who is tuned in today, you're either here because you're an educator, either here because you're a parent, or you're connected with children in some way. So today, I straddle both roles. I'm an educator of preschool kids as well, but I'm also a parenting expert. I run my own channel called Get Set Parent with Pallavi. It's on YouTube. And today I thought I'll pick a topic which connects all of us. And all of us are really interested in figuring out how can our kids develop great memory, right? So memory becomes very critical because it has become a sort of indicator of how a child performs. So a child with better memory tends to have better grades, better results. They even perform better on stage, whether it is a speech to be delivered, whether it is a choreographed dance performance to be staged. All of it requires a lot of processing and a lot of memory, right? So today we're going to talk about what can we as stakeholders in the lives of children, so whether it is parents or whether it is teachers, how can we hone our children's memory, memory building skills? So the first good news is that, we tend to think memory is an inborn trait and you can only be born with great memory. So the good news is that memory actually resides in 4 parts of your brain. That's getting into the science of it, but you have the hippocampus, you have the prefrontal cortex, you have the cerebellum. So these are the parts of the brain that the memory resides in, and your memory can actually get better, right? So let's not give up. Like my quote says, what has happened, what you're born with, but that doesn't, memory can be exercised. The more we exercise our kids' brains, the better their memory can actually get. About 2 types of memory. So one is the long-term memory, right? So what do we mean by long-term memory? So long-term memory are those ingrained memories that we have, which involve processes that we will never forget in our lives. So whether you learn swimming, or whether you learn driving, or whether you learn to walk, or it could be guitaring or piano, it becomes so ingrained, it just remains with us. Yes, Pooja, somebody has said that. It remains with us, and it's a very deep-rooted understanding of the topic, right? So there are ways to build long-term memory. There is also short-term memory. in India, we have, we've been criticized, our education system has been criticized a lot, saying there's so much rote learning that happens. It's all based on short-term memory. But, there are also positives to rote learning. Memory and learning are inseparable. So you need rote learning as well. You need your short-term memory to be able to remember those quick facts, to be able to remember those poems to recite, to be able to sing those songs, to be able to, count seamlessly, from 1 to 1,000 or whatever it is that we want our children to do. So short-term memory is also equally important. So now I'm going to tell you a few tricks on how can you boost the memory of your children. Right? The first thing I actually want to say is that when you make the experience multisensorial, it gets imbibed into short-term memory and a long-term memory. So, you think about a random day, whether you're a parent or you're a teacher, you come wearing a funny hat, or, you paint, make some funny faces, or come and light a candle before you, teach a lesson. What is this doing? It is just creating something so unexpected, so unique that children sit up and take notice. So creating these unique, unexpected learning environments boost memory. Okay, all right. The second thing is, can you make it multisensorial? So yes, we can, for example, you talk about a part of a plant, but you all know that the moment you bring a plant into the classroom, there's touch and feel, there is, absorbing the environment that it is in, the visual appeal. You could also have experiences which are auditory in nature. So the moment your experience becomes multisensorial in nature, your memory kind of gets boosted, right? A very important thing to remember is that if we teach children in an environment of a lot of pressure, right? I mean, we straight away start with, who's not done their work, and there is a lot of, negativity. There's a lot of tension in the room. This actually goes into very reactive learning, which is the space that you don't want your child to get into. Learning needs to be in a very, very comfortable scenario to make it responsive and not reactive. So these are some of the tricks that, parents can actually pick up. When it comes to teachers in the classroom, I have a 2-minute reminder here. I have 2 minutes left. When it comes to teachers in the classroom, a teacher will never say my student doesn't have great memory. What is the manifestation of that? Is that the child is slightly zoned out, the child is distracted, the child is daydreaming, or has short attention spans. So it's very important to identify what are these, what are these gaps? For example, children who have working memory problems. Working memory is basically the process of building your memory, and you need that for your day-to-day life in your classroom. When they miss out letters when they're writing, or they forget when you give them complicated instructions, open your book, page number 46, third line, they are lost, or they have delays in copying from the board. So these are all delays which happen when children have working memory issues. Yes, they miss out letters as well, and they have a problem keeping to the structure. So how, I'll give you 3 tricks on how in the classroom can you help children repeating important information. As early childhood practitioners, repetition is very core to what we do. We have to keep repeating. Even a simple story, children like to hear it again and again and again. So repeat the important points so that they don't get lost. Right? How is it that we can use charts, mnemonics, right? So even if it is the colors of the rainbow, whatever it is, you use number lines, you use mnemonics, you use tables, you use maybe picture dictionaries. How can you bring in a lot of memory aids into the classroom? And finally, I think if you are able to reduce memory load and see if the class in general has a problem comprehending what you are trying to say, maybe it is a little bit of an overload. It's called a memory overload. Maybe it is too much and maybe you want to break it down and give them a pause to kind of understand. So this is a huge topic in itself, because you have long-term, short-term working memory. But as parents, as educators, there's a ton of material available online, whether it is memory building games, whether it is memory boosting tricks. So, I would actually recommend everybody goes and have a look at that as well. And I think my time's up. Mansi is here. So I'll stop right here. And thanks so much for this opportunity, Mansi and ECA.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pallavi. It was indeed pleasure listening to you. Same comments for you. There are a lot of comments pouring in. Please, when the other speaker is talking, maybe you can still have a look at the comments. There are questions flowing in for all of you. So if you have some time, please address those questions as well.
Sure, I'll do that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pallavi. It was great having you. We have the next speaker with us, Ms. Mahek Valecha. Ms. Mahek Valecha is the founder director, Diversity, the Play School. She's also one of the territory heads for APER Telangana chapter. The topic that Mahek will be talking on is a very interesting topic. Even I would want to know the acronym of that. Let me just tell you before you begin with this session, Mahek. The topic is teacher. The quote that Mahek believes in and that she has shared with us to share with all the participants here is, don't limit a child to your own learning, for he was born in another time. All of us know this quote, beautiful quote, has been given to us by Dr. Rabindranath Tagore. And we all know this, and that is what Mahek believes in. Talking about Mahek, Mahek has been one of the first persons I have interacted in ECA when I had joined ECA. So welcome to Mahek, and over to you.
Thank you, Mansi, for getting me here. And I would also like to publicly thank Dr. Swati Popat-Vats for trusting me. It's very, I'm feeling really nervous because I've never spoken on such platforms earlier. However, I'm also excited to talk to everyone, and a very, very warm namaste to all the participants. When we talk about the teachers, so it's a very vast subject for me. So when I hire a teacher in my school, so it takes me months and months together to get the teacher, the philosophy of the school, and that the core of teaching in that teacher. So doing this teacher topic in 7 minutes was not justified for me, right? So I was talking to one of my colleagues, and I told her, for 7 minutes, what am I going to do there? So, a very good thing she says that, Mahek, at least we can have a request to the participants, a request or an appeal can go to the participants on this subject. So I think this idea, I loved it, and I'm not going to talk about any technicality of being a teacher. I'm going to make an appeal, an open appeal to my fraternity, to my teachers, to my educators, that, we are very responsible people on the earth. We are the nation builders. And if somebody says you are an educator, my shoulders feel really heavy. And then it's a huge responsibility on us we have, because we are building the nation and we are directly impacting the whole population of our nation, right? Whether it's early childhood days of a child or a primary school or high school or higher secondary. So when I talk about the teacher, I always say that to my teachers that, you guys are heroes, because in child's life, when the child is born and the child is growing, the first two heroes are his or her father and the mother. And then the third hero on the earth is you. I mean, you cannot take it so light, thinking that I am going to school today to teach a lesson on a subject. It really hurts me really badly when my teacher does not really feel that she's on the earth and doing a leadership job. I mean, you're my leader, come on, right? So for that, I always tell my teachers that you guys are not here to teach the children. You are here to reach the children. So this is my slogan for my participants for their takeaways. That from now on, all my audience, I urge, I request that, going forward, you are going to reach the children, not teach the children, because you are the role model, because you are the epitome of knowledge, because you're the ace player for my child, because you're the champion, and because you're the hero. So it is a huge responsibility. You cannot forget. I always tell my teachers, when you are coming to the school, have a kick. If you want to eat some nice breakfast, if that gives you a kick to come to school, do it. If you want to listen to a great song in your car, do it, so that you should have the kick every day, because this is an everyday's job. My child comes back home and he says that I learned more from YouTube than my teacher. It hurts because I belong to this industry. It really hurts when somebody says that, my children say that my teachers are not kind. What does that mean? Why we are not kind to the children? Why we are busy teaching subjects? Can't we reach them? When you start reaching, believe me, you will learn all the mannerism of classroom management. You will design your own curriculum. You will understand the philosophy of the school. It's very, very difficult not to be a teacher when you are in the classroom. You have to reach the children. Every child needs your reach. I remember my teachers because I don't remember what they taught me. I remember how they reached me. I remember those funny things they did with me. I remember when they quoted that, I know that I have empowered you. Are we empowering the children? We have to really wake up now. This is the right time. COVID-19 has actually given us the challenge, literally face off. We are face off. Come on. Now, I think you're reaching home and now you're teaching online. All the parents are watching us. And then they are feeling pity on us because we do not know English, because we do not know our subject, the depth of our subject, because we are not warm to the children. Why? For me, it's hard. When my teacher says, my child sits in front of the camera and say, hey, there's nothing much she's saying. So what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to reach the children. Come on. I don't have much to say. Every day you have to get ready and say that I am going to build my nation today, because children are on me. So it's hard to not to remember for me, because every day I go to school and I know that these magicians, children are magicians. They have been born empowered. We are just taking away their powers from them. Why we are busy in teaching them? You hug them. They are all yours. Children love kind teachers. Children love, they do silly things. Like Miss Pallavi was saying, that if you wear a funny hat and go to the classroom, they love you. I love Dr. Parekh. She says that, all the questions are answered only through love. I am so happy to be on the same platform with those esteemed speakers. But believe me, I have only an urge to do to you, that go home and celebrate that you are a teacher, you are a nation builder, and you are the profession, you're the crown profession on all professions. Come on, we are making more professions. Our profession is the uppermost, it's the crown. Thank you very much. Mansi, thank you very much. I don't have any other thing to say.
Oh my God, Mehak, you were just superb. The emotions and the way in which you conveyed your points to all of the, all the attendees. It was such a, like I mentioned, it was a power-packed session that we had from Mehak Valecha today. So thank you so much, Mehak. Thank you so much. Your emotions were seen. Your points have been put across, and everybody has been appreciative about it. Look at the comments that you have been getting, Mehak. And truly, you actually conveyed what you actually feel from the bottom of your heart.
Thank you, Mansi.
Thank you for being here, Mehak. We quickly move on to our last but not the least, last but the best. Let me put it across like that. We have Miss Arshia Afsar with us. She is the co-founder and director of Learn to Lead Private Limited. She is the founder for Iris Florets, the Happy Play School, and Sakalia Academy. Former director of Bachpan Schools and Academic Heights Public School. former director of Artha Creative Services and E9 No Soul Private Limited. The topic Arshia is going to talk about is again one of my favorites, character building in children. Very interesting one, Arshia. The quote that Arshia believes in is life is not about waiting for the storm to pass, but it is about learning to dance in the rain. It's a beautiful quote. You did mention about who is the quote, the person who belongs.
Vivian Green.
Yes. So I have just mentioned it over here without the name of the person. So thank you so much. Over to you, Arshia. Everybody is waiting and keen to listen to you.
Thank you, Mansi. You are a true silent support system for the entire ECA and APER team. I'd first like to thank Swati ma'am and the entire team of ECA and APER for all that they're doing for schools, leaders, teachers, parents, and most importantly, the children. My fellow panelists, it's an absolute honor to share the space with you. Dr. Jaya's Khushi Ki Almari, Richa's Reading as a Lifestyle, Sonal's The Crux is Observation, Dr. Pallavi's Creating a Learning Environment, Mehek's Don't Teach the Children, Reach the Children. Fantastic, guys. A great, great round of applause for all of you. I've always said that there is strength in character, and this character building happens in the early years of a child. Character is not just about being a good human being. Character is what the educator said when the lockdown was just 2 weeks down. We will not stop the learning. We will not let the time or distance come in the way. We will beat this virus with our determination and compassion. This speaks of character. And today, with all that is happening around us, we realize just how important character building in children is. I have a simple 5-pointer rule to understand this. I call it VERA, V-E-E-R-A. The V for Vera is values and identity. Children should be proud of who they are, where they come from, and what their values are. Take a look at Swati ma'am's face when she talks in Gujarati. There is a glow, a genuine sense of pride of who she is and where she comes from. So celebrate your culture and language with your children. We need to ensure that children are not afraid to be themselves. This forms the foundation for success. Similarly, teach them values like countering temptation. Here, I have a very interesting bubble bursting activity. You blow bubbles for the children and you ask them to burst these bubbles. The second time that you blow the bubbles, you tell them that they are not allowed to burst any of them, even if it comes and sits on their nose. Gratitude. Talk about the COVID frontliners. Make them understand how grateful we are to them. Have a gratitude tree where the children and other family members can put small post-its to say how grateful they are and for what they are so grateful. Solving conflict. Puppet play is an excellent way to allow children to act out conflicts and then solve them. Empathy. So this is a very, very interesting game. Walk in my shoes game. Place shoe prints on the floor. One child who's feeling low, upset, or angry walks on these first. Then another child walks on the same shoe prints. Then you start discussing with the second child what the first child was feeling and why. We can do this with different family members at home too. Caring. Make a carometer. When the children at home or in class are being more caring, turn the pointer towards the sun and bigger hearts. When they're being less caring, turn the pointer towards the cloud and smaller hearts. Teach them to show and recognize acts of caring. Provide a box of paper happy faces to children. Tell them they can go and distribute this and give this to anybody who's having a bad day. What you can do is you can have paper hearts. You give these to the children to say thank you for their acts of kindness. Next, honesty. Teaching the children that lying can hurt you. It's not a good thing. My favorite story for this is the simple one that everybody knows, the boy who cried wolf. This is an excellent story to explain about honesty to children. Make a lost and found box. Teach your children how, when they find items not belonging to them and others, they should place these items in the lost and found box with utmost honesty. This can be done both in school and at home. Responsibility. Give saplings to children. Ask them to take care of these saplings every day. Set up a book and toy hospital. This is an excellent way where the children are shown a proper way to handle books and toys, and if there is any damage, how to repair these in the hospital. Need for neutral and unbiased children. Talk about how people are alike and also different. This we can do using a box of crayons. Draw a picture to demonstrate all the colors that contribute something to the picture and how adding more colors can make the picture look even better. Discuss this is just how people are different, and when they come together, people can form a very strong community. Now, after V for values and Veera, we go to E, the first E in Veera, examples. We need to ensure that we set the right examples for our children. What they see in us is far stronger than what they hear from us. When we get frustrated and say something negative after watching the news, when we fight with our family for little things, when parents scream at their children, don't scream! They're actually screaming when they say that. How will children learn positivity, patience, and strength if they don't see us doing it? I'll give you a small example. My daughter was just 5 when I lost my father. She walked up to me and said, "Sab theek ho jayega, mummy. It'll be fine soon." She had to have learnt it from somewhere, right? Like Mehak said, every parent and teacher are the first heroes of a child. Are you the hero that you want your child to be? Now, the second E of Veera stands for experience. Giving experience before wisdom. And I have always believed in this. Now, can you imagine if I told you that instead of taking swimming lessons, let's do a correspondence course in swimming? Wear your swimsuit, stand at the edge of the pool, jump into the pool, take your right hand out first, then put it in the water, take your left hand. Seriously, is that even possible? The sweats and the tears, the give-ins and the give-ups, the fears and the final victory is what will make the difference. Please understand that life teaches you much more than an individual. Now, is experience enough? An experience for a child without reflection is entertainment. It's basically entertainment. Now that brings me to the R in Veera, reflection. Asking the child the right kind of questions for reflection and using these to help him or her make the right decisions. To make this very, very simple, we have the ever successful SODAS theory. I'm sure many of you may or may not know about it. So let me tell you. S is for situation, explaining and analyzing a situation with the child. When Anjali throws a paper ball at her brother Rahul. O is for options, giving options of the response. Throw the paper ball back, ignore her, or tell mommy. D is for disadvantages. If you tell mommy, your sister may not play with you again. A is for advantages. If you ignore her, she may stop doing that and come to you finally. S finally is for solution. Ask Rahul to choose a solution and why he chose that solution. Ask him to reflect on his experience of that situation and the choices that he has made. And finally, we come to the A in Veera. So we finished with V, double E, R, and now A. A is for action. Encourage our children to take action. Now, a child cannot build a character just by thinking right. Doing right is the last essential step. Here, I'm going to recommend making a character wheel. It is divided like a pizza into sectors. Very simple. Each sector will have a value in it. We attach a pointer with a pin in the center. And when we spin this, it will go and stop on a particular value. So you can do this in school or at your home. So a value like, say, thank you to 5 people today, wash my own utensils, do not get angry for 24 hours, wake up on time. Time management is also a character. Don't try building a child's character with big changes and teachings. Characters are built with small but consistent changes every single day. Always remember, the child needs a structure and rules. None of us said that we love our moms the most in the world because she said, do whatever you want, whenever you want. So don't worry. They are going to love us when they look back at the boundaries we had set up for them. I just want to leave you with one thought. Before we teach our children to build a world for the future, we must teach them to build their character for today. Thank you everybody for listening. I'm sorry I couldn't cover all the values maybe individually later you can we can connect and I can tell you different values and what are the games and the activities that we can have with the children, both at school and at home. So thank you.
Thank you, Arshia. And I must really congratulate you. You are fasting, you had so much to talk, and you are still able to manage. So thank you for accepting to speak on the ECA per talks. It was indeed a pleasure. A lot of comments again are flowing on for you also. Can I have all the speakers off on their screens, please? Unmuted yourselves so that we can have a glimpse of all of you at one go together. Dr. Jaya, yes.
Yes.
So thank you, everybody. It was indeed a power-packed session, as I had mentioned very correctly in the messages as well. So thank you, Arshia. Thank you, Mehak. Thank you, Dr. Pallavi. Thank you, Richa. Thank you, Sonal. Thank you, Dr. Jaya. I am telling the order as I'm seeing in the front of the screen, not as per the speaking thing. I'm able to see, and I'm going from left to right. So I'm thanking all of you in that order. Any closing comments from any of the speakers? Most welcome, please. Anybody would like to say anything?
Mansi,
Yes.
I would like to add something.
Yes.
So first of all, it was great listening to all the co-panelists, all the co-speakers here, and learned a lot. What I could make out is that anything and everything that we are talking about ultimately relies on making us and the child being mindful. Mindfulness is the key to making that progress that we are talking about. And I would urge the schools to follow this practice of mindfulness that has given us good results. We follow 3 minutes of silence every day in the school, and we call it as Alpa Viram. And I can see a change in everyone becoming a little more calmer and little more mindful of their actions. So this is the parting words from me. It has been a pleasure listening to all of you. And thank you, APER. Thank you, ECA. Thank you, Dr. Swati. And thank you, Mansi.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you all.
Jaya.
Thank you.
So I just
Anybody
want to
else?
say one thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to say one thing before we wind up. We have so many amazing teachers and educators here. I think when Mehak charged them up, I could see the emotion flowing out of all our teachers, and so did Asha as well from the teacher perspective. But my only appeal is, try and get some of this down. We have limited access to our children, but parents are also craving information. So try and share some of these aspects with parents as well, because they might not be the best teachers, but they are parents who have the best interests at heart for the children. So this is the partnership that we, as educators and parents have to follow for several months ahead now. So try and build a long-term partnership with parents more now than ever before.
Thank you, Dr. Pallavi.
Mansi,
Asha,
I just wanted to say that Mehak's topic, when I heard it, and it was just teacher. Honestly speaking, I thought she left out the rest of the topic. There was a line and then she left it out.
We did get a comment saying that is the topic incomplete. Mike, this is just for your information.
Yes, so but when she spoke, I realized that she didn't need the line after the word, and that's what I realized.
Truly.
In fact, in all our cultures, whether you call him ustad or you call her guru or whatever you say, it's exactly this feeling. So you get these goosebumps and you start getting very emotional. वो घर पे आके आपको religious teachings करा रहा हो, या it is someone who is teaching you in a classroom, you just get so emotional. Even today, when you think about 8th standard wali teacher, 10th standard. So honestly speaking, she really got out that emotion in all of us, and we started thinking about all our teachers and our present teachers. So it was wonderful.
So Mehak, you are making everybody feel nostalgic now.
Yeah.
Also proud of being a teacher.
Yes.
And also keeping of using it responsibly.
Right. So Sonal, any words from you?
No, I was just wanting to compliment Mehak. The kind of kinesthetics she's brought in her while talking was like, my camera was off, but my eyes were wide open, stuck on her, and I could feel that feeling, the way she was expressing herself. This is one, and I would like to thank everybody. There's so much to learn from you all, and the message to the parents is, learning is never ending, man. Come on. Even you can learn from your children. So forget you're there to teach them. You're there with an open mind. Listen to them. Listen to your like I'm here on the panel, Mansi. Thanks to you and Dr. Swati Popat. What's like being here means a lot to learn. Or I would have been sitting at my home doing nothing maybe. So listening to Pallavi, listening to Richa, Dr. Jaya, Arshia, I love your energy a lot. The kind of quickness you have shown, very rare people have this in them, that they know they have 7 minutes and they have to go You actually did that. Wonderful. I have made some notes from your talk.
Thank you.
And thanks, Mansi, to you, patient.
Always welcome.
To all of us
Always.
organizing it. Thanks to 200 and it was almost 270.
Yeah, we have many viewers on Facebook as well. So it's going live on multiple pages. We have around 15 shares from our Facebook pages. Any closing comments from Richa?
Oh, I just want to thank everybody here, for the loads of learning that happened right here. It's amazing, how, and thanks to Dr. Swati for bringing us all together on this platform, for actually making this platform work like it does. And, like Dr. Pallavi also mentioned, it's just that, now we are all together. It's just that if we can just get the parents also on the same page, if we get the parents together, if we get the parents to walk with us, there's nothing like it. There's nothing that we can't achieve, and the children will have the best of it all. So for the sake of our children and for the sake of the future, let's hold hands and go on together. And I just hope that each child grows up to be a reader. That's my only dream of the future. So.
That's very true. Thank you so much, Richa. Thank you all the panelists. Thank you all the attendees. Stay tuned on the Facebook page. We will be right back with same show, same time, different speakers, of course, next Monday, 4 o'clock. And before I have a closing comment. It looked like the EC APER talk that we have is for Telangana and not for the all India, because we have 3 speakers from Telangana today. We have Arshia, we have Mehak, and we have Richa from Telangana. We have Sonal from Delhi. We have Dr. Pallavi from Bhopal, and Dr. Jaya is from Amchi, Mumbai, where I am staying myself as well. So we are from Mumbai. And thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. And
Take care.
Thank you, Mansi. Thank you for the great support. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mansi.
Bye.
Bye.